Hello and welcome to ARC360's Looking Ahead digital event series. Before starting, we'd just like to say thank you to our corporate partners, the ASF, EMACS, CAPS, Copart, EMACS, Integral, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Merca, Nationwide Vehicle Recovery Assistance, S&G Response, and Sherwin-Williams, as well as our partners, Aztec, Innovation Group, Indasa, the Green Part Specialists, and our latest partner, Casco. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy this webinar.
Well, hello everybody, and thank you very much for joining us. You will have just seen there that you are tuned in to the ARC360 Looking Ahead Digital Event Week, and this is our 5th session this week. And welcome along Rob Harper, who we will be going across to very shortly. So it's our keynote interview with Rob. So first and foremost, you will have heard the names read out previously, but here are our corporate partners and our partners, those who power ARC360 and make everything we do possible. Obviously, before we get started, so a bit of a disclaimer, the views and opinions expressed during the following webinar are those of the individual contributor and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the contributor's employer, organisation, committee or other group or individual. Please respect all contributions, and we encourage you to join the conversation via the interactive functions available. Okay. So here we are. Thank you everyone for joining us. And of course, thank you to yourself, Rob. Great to have you along once more.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. And well, this time last year, we were kicking off, well, not exactly this time last year, but we were kicking off our event, our first ARC360 event at Leicester City Football Club. And you joined us there as well. So welcome return. I know you've featured on one of the webinars as well. So it's great to have you on board, and thanks very much for your time. Those joining us, again, please use the chat function. Let us know that you are tuned in and engaged with the session. Again, if there's any Q&As, fire them away in the Q&A section or icon there on the screen. Great to hear from people. It's always interesting sitting on this side of the screen. It's just great to know people are out there. So, Rob, if I can just jump across to yourself, Head of Claims Business Performance at Admiral Group, but can you just give us a little bit of context in terms of what that means?
Yeah, sure. I've actually been at Admiral Group 5 years on Tuesday, and that's that time has actually flown. 5 years has gone so fast. Prior to that, I spent 15 years at ERS, over 15 years at ERS. So moving from a specialist intermediated motor insurer to the largest private car carrier, direct carrier in the UK was different, but a lifelong claims professional. At Admiral, I've been involved in some interesting assignments, initially to build out the claims proposition for its first foray into directly underwritten van. Then via a sort of greenfield project, I built out its first designated supply chain function. And then 2.5 years ago, I took on a broad remit that encompasses 16 distinct functional responsibilities. But within that, and that is business performance, within that is still a responsibility at a sort of cabinet level, if you like, with the claims team within Admiral for all of our external facing activity. So that includes supply chain repair network and engineers as well, who work with our repairers to agree repair costs.
Great stuff. Well, it's no small remit, obviously. And in terms of Admiral, I mean, most people obviously know Admiral, specifically within motor, and some have a sense of the scale of the business. But can you tell us more about the specifics of the motor business and your supply chain relationships? How does it all work, essentially?
Yeah, so Admiral been trading for just over 25 years. In that time, we've become the leading private car motor insurer in the UK with a 15% market share. That's over 4 million customers. That, of course, generates a decent number of repairs to manage on an annual basis. Our repair network extends to a total of 400 sites across the Admiral and manufacturer scheme networks, and that's a mix of independents and groups. We've essentially self-managed the network since day one, and a decent number of repairers have actually been with us right from the start. In terms of supply chain relationships, well, I suppose I'm always conscious that claims is that moment of truth, which we talk about a lot, how our own people, our suppliers interact with our customers, and it brings the product, our brand to life. It's probably an old cliche, but we really do recognize our supply chain as an extension of ourselves. So that means we expect them to operate as we do. So understanding values, culture, what matters to us, what we expect the customer to receive in terms of experience and fair outcomes, all of that is hugely important to us. And it's on that basis that we set about creating the supply chain relationships that we do. And I suppose that means that we can be a demanding customer at times, but one where the sort of determination to deliver the best possible results really comes from a very honest place, Mark.
Yeah, great stuff, and that's fair enough, and that's the way the world works. If you've got buy-in to your culture and ethos, then you expect the same from both sides, really. Now, clearly, 2020, we don't need to kind of go back to where we've been and everything else. We're nearing the end of the year, and many people will breathe a sigh of relief with that. But it's been a challenging year for all. But from your perspective, and specific to the motor insurance business, what have kind of been, the lowlights? They might be obvious, but and again, the highlights might be obvious of 2020.
Yeah, very apt that you started a summary of 2020 with lowlights rather than highlights. It has been extremely challenging, hasn't it, for everybody concerned? And I suppose it's a different kind of challenging. For example, bad weather will ease off. We all know that. COVID has a lot more uncertainty, so it's going to bring arguably a longer tail as well. We've had challenges in providing clarity for our repairers, trying to predict volumes. It's been an almost impossible task, but a question that many of us are asked a lot, ensuring that we had space when repairers were understandably closing and or furloughing staff at the height of the first lockdown period took a lot of effort to manage. We also recognise, of course, the financial impact for repairers and supply chain. The industry has worked hard to support where it can, but there's no getting away from the fact that it's been really, really tough. It's probably, it'd be incumbent upon me as well to mention, the demise of the largest repair group in the UK and them going into administration and the really uncertain period leading up to that point. And for anybody involved in that process, obviously they needed to quickly respond to that and minimize disruption for customers. Highlights, there have been some, even in a really, really tough year. Resilience is actually a word I've used a few times this week. If we predicted COVID last year, many would have thought that would have been such a hammer blow to the industry that actually it wouldn't have survived. Well, the vast majority of us are still here and actually looking forward to the future and the new normal. We've been able to repair customers' cars when they've wanted it, period. We've been able to remain operational, and our supply chain has allowed that to happen. We've been very active on ensuring availability of parts. Our parts program has worked incredibly well for us, but I know availability generally has been good. And that, again, that's been great for us and our customers. I think positivity in really challenging times, those I speak to are still keen to remain optimistic. Repair is still an industry to invest in. In fact, there are a number of well-documented cases of repair groups pumping investment into their business to future-proof and meet demand. And I think that's really, really encouraging. It's been incredibly tough, but the industry will come out of this period. I'm sure about that. And the very best out there will continue to prosper in the future.
Yeah, great stuff, Rob. And obviously one of the highlights you missed off there was appearing on the ARC360 webinars, but I won't hold that against you.
It goes without saying, of course.
Yes. Good man. And the resilience thing, absolutely right. I mean, it's been really interesting, as you say, to have documented the whole period when we first kind of, dive to the darkest point, if you like, during this in terms of claims volumes. There was a sort of an anticipation that something big within the industry, we're going to see a lot of businesses disappear within a month, 2 months, whatever it might be. That timeline just progressively has kind of continued to move. And now I think most people are kind of, looking ahead to March 2021, where, again, obviously that's the end of the furlough as it stands at the moment. But, again, will that be the real timeline that we're looking at? Or again, will the goalposts just move and will we, come out the other side again?
Again, really difficult to answer that. But what we have seen in recent weeks is it really encouraging signs with regards to the prospect of mass vaccination next year, and we're looking about March, April, based on the reports that I've seen as the date when that would happen, and then we return to something that looks like normal. Obviously, that is a new normal, but then potentially we can put this nightmare behind us and sort of move forward to a large degree. So I think a lot of us look at 2021 and certainly sort of from Q2 and 21 onwards as the period where we can return to some semblance of normality.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it certainly seemed to be, I think, a webinar we hosted a few weeks back. I think that was, if memory serves me correct, Q2 2021 was the period where we thought there might be some form of stability, whatever that might look like. Again, nobody's quite, got the crystal ball to tell us exactly what that will be. Now, unsurprisingly, motor claims volumes, as has been well documented, been significantly down in 2020. And with that, there's kind of a sentiment, if you like, an undertone that, motor insurers are living the good life, if you like, at the moment. However, the world knows, we all know it's not quite black and white like that. And what would your response kind of be to that kind of thought, if you like? Okay,
so forgive me for a bit of flagrant self-publicity here on behalf of Admiral, but we recognised early on that with fewer miles being driven that there would be fewer claims, and Admiral automatically issued a £25 premium rebate to all its customers for every car and van that was on cover. That was a total of 4.4 million vehicles and £110 million in premium that was rebated. Not only was that the right thing to do for our customers, it was actually what we believe the regulator would expect us to do in the circumstances. I think I speak from on behalf of everybody that is associated with Admiral, in that we were incredibly proud of the decision that we took and how we executed that. You say the good life. I'm not actually sure what do you mean by that. Let me sort of try and draw on some recent market insight to try and sort of paint a picture here. So EY have commissioned a report and issued that in recent weeks, and if we go by their numbers, they predicted the market net combined ratio for 2020 will be, give or take, 94%, and that's a 7% improvement on 2019. So net combined ratio, on the one hand, premium received, on the other hand, claims costs and expenses paid out. So for every £1 received in premium, 94 pence will be paid out in costs and expenses. That bucks a market trend across motor insurers that's seen insurers post consistent underwriting losses on motor. However, so 2020 is looking good, whilst previous years has been tougher. The sector is still facing headwinds from underlying inflation and the impact potentially of the FCA's pricing review, which might squeeze profitability. And the prediction from EY is that actually in 2021 that will be pushed back into the red, and it's predicting that net combined ratio for 21 to be a loss-making 104%. Why? Well, we're certainly seeing inflation in repair. The repairers on this call today will feel that, given how many conversations they have with people like me with regards to average repair cost over the past few years. And the trend there is going to continue to keep growing as technology doesn't go away. The car park shifts and probably accelerates with some of the announcements the UK government made again in recent weeks with regards to the ban on new petrol and diesel vehicles from 2030. I think that has a big implication in terms of the mix of jobs, the technical requirements over the next few years as well. Also, at that end, we operate in a super competitive space, the UK motor market being the most competitive in the world. Any benefits that insurers are likely to generate will be competed away pretty quickly. Now, despite what I've said, there are some exceptions and a small number of insurers that do well out of motor. But the argument somehow begrudges those that have a profitable form. I think that's a counterintuitive stance to take. It's not as straightforward as saying that claims are down, insurers have loads of profit, and that profit should be handed out in some way. Many are often reliant on other product lines, and some of which, like travel and BI, are really under pressure right now. Ancillary or investment income to offer some semblance of shareholder value. So it's challenging and not necessarily a bed of roses for many out there, Mark.
Hi everyone, we hope you're enjoying this webinar. Just a quick thank you once again to all of our corporate partners and partners on screen now. Now back to the show.
No, that makes absolute sense. And I think, taken in isolation, these things can look rather more appealing, if you like, or more impressive than perhaps they are. And it's, it's great to gain the context behind all of these, headlines, if you like, because I just think it shares the picture with everyone, really.
I mean, there's more to add. There's more to add. I mean, will driving behaviour change post-COVID? Will that affect claims frequency? Could that be built into pricing models? We don't know yet. It could. Bodily injury reform, it's earmarked for April 21. I don't think I put my life savings on it happening in April 21, but that's the date that it remains at this moment in time. That could result in lower premiums and in the future actually reduced exposure for insurers. That remains to be seen. I haven't mentioned Brexit, of course, and the impacts that may present. But of course, that just brings further challenges potentially as well. And of course, I touched on the impact in terms of travel claims and business interruption and the impact that COVID has had on those product lines as well. So what I'm saying is, claims are certainly down. The 2020 position looks a lot better for motor insurers at a combined ratio level, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everything is easy for insurers right now, and that's really the message I want to get across.
Great stuff, Rob, and really appreciate the context on that, because as I say, when you look at it in a silo fashion, as I say, it can provide a completely different context to actually what's sat behind it. So from a claims perspective, and again, 2020, what has it highlighted about your motor supply chain relationships that perhaps previously have kind of gone, flown beneath the radar, been taken for granted, or just been kind of almost unnoticed? And, with that, the good elements or the elements that have kind of come to the fore, how are you going to or plan to continue to build on those to make them even better than perhaps they've been highlighted as?
Yeah, I'd like to think that things like this weren't taken for granted, but I suppose to a certain degree it might have been. The things I'd probably highlight are certainly an element of adaptability within the supply chain. For instance, we were able to make changes and reallocate volume and work very easily. Actually, a willingness to continue to work really collaboratively with true strategic partners. Now that's never in doubt, but I think it really has come to the fore over the past few months. And sort of allied to that, a lot of people that we work with who are prepared to go the extra mile through COVID. Something I'll touch on sort of at a personal level as well is also actually building relationships with people I didn't necessarily have a working relationship with prior to COVID, who aren't necessarily direct suppliers of mine, but actually without sort of sharing any sort of commercial sensitivities, we were still able to share insight for the greater good, especially as we were in the height of lockdown. And I think the industry has talked more. I think ARC360 and the work that you've done, Mark, has actually fostered that as well. And I think that's a really good thing. So I think what it's done is almost solidified, intensified, if you like, actually the really core important parts of an insurer supplier relationship and how that should work as well. But it's also I suppose to a certain degree expanded the contact book, which is no bad thing in my line of work either. So yeah, I think there's plenty that I can look back on and say that actually working with our partners over this period of time has been challenging. Yeah, really tough at times for them, but I think it's just really made those really key relationships even stronger.
And how do you kind of build upon perhaps, new things that you've implemented. We've talked about technology on the webinars for, the various weeks and how that's impacted relationships, the use of these things. How do you could sort of, I suppose, in your mind, continue to build on that and the good elements that perhaps, you've already picked up on?
Well, we, like many insurers, many of our competitors right now, are not only sort of had to, in 2020, manage and execute a really significant sort of DR plan and get thousands of people working from an office environment, working from home. And once you actually went through that major hump and actually then could continue service, actually started to look forward. So you're actually running the business in a remote fashion and then thinking strategically. So we're no different. We've done a lot of work in terms of what our future strategy is and looks like, and as we continue to run the business, and within that, looking at our own supply chain strategies as well. So there's a rather large piece of work back at Admiral Virtual Towers, which is looking at that right now, and that will bring with it new ways of working potentially, and doing more with our existing supply chain, and it also could mean new products as well. So we are actively looking at all of those sorts of things as well. So whilst you might argue that's sort of BAU work, and it is to a certain degree, it's encouraging that we're still able to do those things and still work it with suppliers, both existing and prospect, at these times, these really challenging times in this sort of remote environment. So we've been able to achieve all of those things, and we'll continue to work on those things as well.
Great stuff. Admiral Virtual Towers. I like that. I'm going to use that. I'll borrow that one from you, if I may. So we again hosted, and you were party to it. We hosted a sort of session with our corporate partners and our partners and various invited guests, where we had Dr. Linda Lee Davis join us, and who's an expert in management leadership. And we were talking about kind of intergenerational change and integration, and then we started talking a little bit about the future, where it was a case of work around the group and, okay, 5 years time, 3 to 5 years time, what will the claims world, motor claims world look like? And during that session, you touched upon some what I thought were fascinating sort of subject matters or areas. So can you give us a little insight into those that you mentioned during that call?
Yeah, you put me on the spot now, because I've slept multiple times since then. So what did I mention? I know I touched on attended automation. So I think what I could recognise in claims, and when you look at end-to-end claims processes, is it's sometimes very difficult to automate that whole thing end-to-end. They're less linear, if you like, claims processes, as opposed to things like new business processes. So I think we've got to work and get ourselves to a place where actually we can combine authentic intelligence, i.e. human beings, and that artificial intelligence, and get the two to really coexist in a really effective way. So whilst we've had great success in terms of using unattended robots, so robots that will work in the background and process supply payments and things like that, and they do that really effectively and really quickly. It's actually how we can then start to move towards that attended automation. So it's actually technology and automation that works with a user to create efficiencies at a user level as well, but it also doesn't completely remove that human element as well. So I think I touched on that. I certainly touched on digitization and actually getting ourselves to a place where we are routinely able to offer our customers choice at the point of claim, whether that be go down a digital route, or sort of no touch or low touch claims experience, or whether it's the old traditional route where the customer that still wants to speak to a human being because they need that comfort, that security of speaking to a human being, that option is still there. At the risk of being really controversial, I expect my LinkedIn inbox to be full of speculative inquiries after me saying this. Repair tracking. Now, there are repair tracking and claim tracking products out there, and some insurers are doing some decent work in this space. But routinely, every single repair, 100% of repairs in the UK at this moment in time, does not have a repair tracking facility. So Mrs. Smith, when she makes that claim, is still not always able to understand where that repair is in that journey. at what stage it is the ECD that they've been given absolutely the right date? And as a result of that, it just creates contact into the insurer, contact into the repairer, and that's the epitome of failure demand, which of course we all are aiming to strip out. So I think that is actually technology that will be there very, very soon, but I think as an industry we've been too slow. I think I touched on image estimation as well, and again, that's another one that we've started to see introduce. But I reckon in the next 5 years we'll start to see that technology enhance yet further. But at this moment in time, I still need engineers to work on estimates and agree repair costs. The image alone doesn't allow me to do that with a degree of reliability more often than not. And I think the last thing I touched on, Mark, from memory was actually smart contracts, so supply chain interaction. Again, smart contract blockchain is something that's been talked about for a long time. And again, I still think we'll start to see that start to come through more often in the next 3 to 5 years as well. So they are the sort of areas that I'm interested in. They're the areas that I'm keen on exploring. And I think if we limit it to those things, but they're really big and really important, I think that we will absolutely enhance our overall proposition firstly, and enhance delivery and execution for our customers as well, which is obviously the most important thing. And of course, what is very, very easy here. You've pinched one of my phrases. I'm going to pinch a phrase from somebody else that was involved in that session, and that person said that they often felt as if they were waterboarded at times by the sheer volume of approaches that you can get from tech startups, and it's very, very difficult sometimes to pick through what the product is, what it is they're trying to sell you, how actually you think that they think that actually that's going to add value to your business and ultimately to your customers, and it's very, very difficult sometimes. But there's always that really that nugget in there, that one you actually may want to pursue, but it's very, very difficult sometimes to cut through all of those. When of course, that a huge proportion of those startups will actually fail. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't want those approaches. I do, but if you do approach me, please tell me what the product is to start with. That's really, really important. Please do your research on my employer. That's really important, and then tell me how you're actually going to add some value to what we do today and to our customers. Again, that's really, really important. If you do those things and tick those boxes, I'm more likely to actually engage with you, listen to you, and see what we can do in terms of further in discussions. So you've got to do all of that. You've got to cut through all of that, but ultimately with the end game of better automation, better digitization and choice for the customers, get ourselves to a place where actually the customer can dip in and understand where their claim is at without having to ring and speak to a human being who may or may not know and may have to make a further call to try and find that information out, where actually the images are in a place where they're really reliably, consistently, repeatedly in a place where they can actually predict a true repair cost, and where we can take out some of the friction that exists between insurer engineering teams and repairers, and just get the repairer to repair the car. That would be great, wouldn't it? And actually, where, as I said, we can use things like smart contracts to foster that greater interaction across supply chains as well. So I think we can get ourselves to a place where we achieve all of those things. That would be a big step forward for us.
Well, that's a busy few years ahead for you. So you've put yourself on the spot now. You've opened the floodgates for all sorts of invitations and things from that. But hey, that's the way to do it. If that's how to get into Rob Harper's mindset, then listen to the man himself, and also great memory from all those weeks back, all those ideas that you brought to the fore. So thank you very much for that, Rob. Really good insight again.
Great session. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, so thanks for the invite.
Absolute pleasure. So again, goodness me, look at the time. Very quickly, I suppose, two things to touch upon. What's your vision of the ultimate motor claims journey for a customer, and how can we all start working towards it, essentially?
Good question. Refer to my previous answer around choice. I think that's really, really important. I think the fundamentals will always be there. Do what you say you're going to do. Do it in a time frame that you say you're going to do it, and using common sense to put things right when we need to. More often than not, we do those things right now. But I think there will be a greater expectation within consumers generally that actually insurers are in a position to provide them with a digital journey where they actually want that. They don't necessarily need to or want to engage with human beings, but actually have an ability to engage with human beings where they need that reassurance and that comfort of speaking to a human being. And I think if insurers can get that right, get that balance right, also protect their position and their customers' position in terms of being able to identify fraud effectively and those sorts of things. I think we can get ourselves to that place, then I think that, as I say, is a really, really big step forward, and I guess feeds into that ultimate claims journey you talk about.
Great stuff. And last thing, if you like, very quick message to your motor supply chain at the moment. Anything you'd say to them right now?
Yeah, firstly, thank you. It's been and still is a very, very tough year, and particularly if you run your own business or been sort of personally affected in other ways. You've adapted, you've delivered, you've done everything that we've asked, and just thank you. Secondly, we're with you and we look forward optimistically to the future. And thirdly, there's going to be a normal, and there will be a period that's probably, or something that's not normal. So COVID we will work through, and that will get us back to normal. The not normal, if you like, is actually going to be car technology repairs that are going to keep evolving, and that will evolve at a faster pace than before. But together we will work through that. Some skills may change, equipment may change, how cars are repaired to a certain degree may change in the future, but I guess that together we'll keep delivering great service for our customers by us continuing to work together.
Super stuff. Goodness me, there you go. 1 minute past 11. We've covered an awful lot of ground off there, Rob. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you to everyone who's joined us. Let's just again remind you who those corporate partners are of ARC360 and our partners. So we've got BASF, BMS, CAPS, Copart, EMACS, Integral, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Mercer, Nationwide Vehicle Recovery Assistance, S&G Response, and Sherwin-Williams Automotive Finishes, as well as our partners Aztec, the Green Part Specialists, Indasa, Prasco, and the Innovation Group. So a lot of what Rob said there takes us across to the final session of the week, which is at 1:30 today, where we're specifically focusing on the future of repair. Hope everyone enjoyed the session. Drop some comments in the chat before you leave. Follow up with any emails to myself, and I can always direct them towards Rob. Thank you very much indeed, Rob. I know you're often going to enjoy the weekend now, so have a great weekend, and really appreciate your time.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, Mark, and well done for what you and ARC360 are doing as well. You're getting the industry talking, and that's really, really important. So thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Take care. Cheers all. Thank you very much.